Hi, welcome back. I'm Charlotte, and this time we're joined by Peter McDowall. How are you, Peter?
I'm good, Charlotte, yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Let's start off. How does it feel being the one interviewed? Because normally, you're the one asking all the questions.
Yeah, it's quite strange, to be honest. And you always try and put people at ease and say, we can always start it again, or we can, anything you're not happy, we can speak about something else. But when you're on the receiving end, it feels quite a different experience. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
you have to be kind to me.
I'll try. I've got quite a few, but yeah. I think let's really start with the start of your career. So you started in radio. When did you sort of realise that you wanted to go down that path and be a radio presenter?
I think I was really lucky because when I was kind of 12 or 13, radio was buoyant. It was, it was the thing that most kids wanted to do. If you couldn't be a footballer, they wanted to commentate on it or write about it. So I was really lucky. Radio City was the station at the time, and I can remember being kind of 12, 13 and thinking, this sounds like a great job to have. So I'd quite often be in my bedroom, I'd have the radio on in the background, doing homework and trying to imagine what the commentary box looked like. The commentators were so good at being descriptive. They would describe the weather and what the stadium looked like, and I used to think I'd love to have a go at that. And I'd write to the commentators and ask them for signed pictures and things like that. It was a big thing back then, and I still remember getting a letter back off Graham Beecroft, who was kind of my hero, if you like. I listened to him on the radio, Kevin Keaton's, both still commentating now. And yeah, hospital radio was probably the next step to try and get through. So I was commentating on Tranmere games within, probably 6 months ago in there, and it just felt like the most natural thing. When you find a niche for something and you think, this is me, I think.
Yeah.
This could be me. But, even before that, probably 13, 14, going to watch Sunday League games across the road from where my mum and dad lived and commentating into a little dictaphone. You used to be able to buy from Argos for about 25 quid. And I'd sit at the very back of the stand because I didn't want anybody to hear me.
Yeah.
I'd be practicing the art. So even long before I went to university and I got a journalism degree, but that was just a piece of paper I needed. I knew at 12 and 13 that this was the job I was going to do when I was old enough to bang on someone's door. And fortunately, it was Radio City. I actually started, my first ever professional job was at a radio station that's not there across the road, so just across from Asda, where that is. Buzz Radio, which I think later became Heart Radio, probably as you know it now. And yeah, I was a newsreader. I was a sports reporter for them, and the promised land was Radio City. That's where I always wanted to work. And the day that they offered me a job was just the best day of my life. It was incredible to finally get into that tower and think, someone's going to pay me now to do this job I've done for free.
Would you say that sort of practicing on your own and commentating was that sort of thing that helped you the most, sort of preparing yourself for going into that?
Yeah, I'm probably listening back, which is still, all of these years later, watching yourself back and listening to yourself back is the most useful thing, but it's the hardest thing as well, because you kind of predict what you're going to do wrong, but it's so important, and for you to go into that job as well as you do it, it's really important to self-criticise. Be kind to yourself, but also certain things that you will do habitually to stop yourself going, I say a lot, or I'll wave my hands around a lot. I need to stop doing that. So you kind of self-coached really, because there's no manual you can really pick up and learn how to become a professional broadcaster or football commentator. You learn by listening, and you learn by watching other people. You're taking those hallmarks on, going, I like the way he does that, I like the way she does that. Maybe I'll try that in what I do. So you become this mad patchwork quilt, a little bit like the dots behind you there. You become a complete mixture of everybody.
Yeah, would you say watching people really helped you as well?
Yeah. I love Des Liner, which we want for YouTube, but he became somebody that just made it look like you were part of it. And it's something I try now. Whenever I find a script that somebody's written, it says, join me at 6 o'clock. I always change it to join us at 6 o'clock, because that was something Des Lynam always did. He'd make you feel like there was kind of 4 of you in that equation. You'd be you and 2 guests and whoever was watching at home. And he was great at just fading enough into the background to get the debate or the discussion from one place to another. But I'll never forget, I watched him on TV once, and you agonise so much about writing the right script to introduce a show.
Yeah.
And the time of the show had changed, so it used to go out at 10:30, and it came out at something like 10:45.
Yeah.
And it was a big thing, you know, the time of match of the day had changed. And he started the show by saying, "Thanks for staying up." And it was just so simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do when you do it well. It should be really simple. It should be something that everybody can kind of empathise with and feel part of.
Yeah.
So watching presenters like him, I think helped me, and still help me now. I still feel as though I'm learning all the time from different presenters, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously you sort of left radio and went to TV. What was that like for you, from going and sitting behind the desk, people not really knowing your face, and then being in front of cameras and people recognising you?
Yeah, it was weird, and it's still a bit weird now, and it's lovely, and it's lovely that people recognise you for what you do. I mean, in the great scheme of things, it's strange because you're not saving lives. You just sometimes at the end of their TV screen, and they feel like they know you. But it was quite difficult to adapt to. Remember when the kids were really small, and the little boy and the little girl would say, "Well, why they come over to speak to you, Dad?" And I'd try and explain, well, they've got this thing that they love in their life called Liverpool Football Club, and anything that's associated with it, they want to be part of, because it's part of their life and part of their family. And people are just so nice when they come over to you, because they just want to talk to you about what it is that you do. They don't always know your name. They'll quite often just point at you and go, "LFC TV," and then you kind of get talking, or you get in a taxi and they'll say, "Where do I know your face from?" It's not on anymore, but I used to crack the joke, cry much, you know, from. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing, because we're a family, aren't we? I think as Liverpool people, Liverpool fans, so the fact that people recognise you for, you know, hopefully doing quite a good job on the stuff that they really enjoy, it's, you never get bored of it.
Yeah. What was it like taking that, you know, dream job at LFC, sort of going to that club that, you know, you loved as a kid?
Do you know, it didn't exist when I was a kid, but had it existed when I was a kid, I would have probably wanted to be me. If that makes sense. So when I was talking to you then about Graham Beecroft, Radio City was the LFC TV of the day. But had LFC TV existed when I was 12, it would have been, I want his job. I'm old and I could get to announce the players' names and interview the manager of Liverpool. That would have been what I aspired to do. So people often say that it was a dream job. It wasn't even a dream then. It wasn't even possible when I was 12. But yeah, it was just weird. It's still strange all of these years on. Sometimes you get that feeling of at some point someone's just going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "We're only messing." You know what I mean? You have to go get a proper job now instead. So I never ever lose sight of, you know, I use the word lucky, but I always believe as well that you only stay lucky this long if you work hard. You know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And hopefully, you know, I'm an example of that, I hope.
Yeah, I think so. You know, obviously match days must be really, you know, difficult. You know, there's a lot going on. What's that like for you? Because I'm sure you work behind the scenes as well as on TV. So talk us sort of through, you know, a typical match day for you.
Yeah, there's lots of different things I do on a match day. So because I work for TV as well, quite often it'll be, you know, get to the ground 4 hours before kick-off, and you know, you'll be speaking to the TV producers in the days leading up to it. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go and interview him, or I want you to go outside and speak to the fans. So there'll be a couple of things I'll need to do for TV before we get to the point where you'll be announcing the team. So quite often it feels like you're taking one hat off, putting another hat on. You're running out pitch side, you get the team sheet off somebody. You know, you're writing the team out in position order, because you're trying all of the time to be perfect. I've got the perfectionist gene from my dad, who still, you know, would agonise over screwing a TV bracket up that's slightly wrong, and you take it down and do it 10 more times. And I think in my job, that's what I probably wrestle with the most. I want everything to be perfect, but it can't be all the time. But yeah, that's probably a match day. It's 4 or 5 different things before the game. Then the game starts, and you're watching a game a different way to everybody else, because you see them whether they're making subs, or, you know, a goal goes in, you're trying to make sure you're getting the right announcement for whoever scored the goal. And then the game finishes, and you're then trying to find out who it is that you're going to interview. And then it stops again, maybe 6 or 7 hours later, and you kind of sit down, your face is bright red with the pressure of trying to get everything right, and you just think, that was a rush, wasn't it? Seeing Liverpool win the game in the last minute, and you then turn into a fan again.
Yeah. Do you find it quite stressful, that sort of rush, and the amount of pressure that's on you to sort of get it right?
Not stressful as such, but you kind of carry the weight of expectation that you're going to get it right. Stress is a strong word, isn't it? And, we're in a place like the Hive. You've just been explaining to me some of the things that you make a difference in people's lives every day. That's stress, isn't it? This is just an enjoyment on a completely different level, really. It's like you couldn't pay for that experience, would you? Really? Even if you were a millionaire, you probably couldn't pay for the experience that I get on match days. So it's the biggest high. And you know what I really love about going into the ground on a match day is watching the enjoyment of other people's match day. So I love that walk from Utting Avenue where I park, walk through Stanley Park car park, and then you're just looking into people's eyes on the way up, thinking you're seeing sometimes kids going to the game for the first time with their mum and dad, and sometimes grandparents taking their kids. You can overhear them talking about players that they've just passed who played for Liverpool 30 years ago. All of the conversations that you hear on the way into the ground, speaking to the stewards about what kind of day they've had, seeing what kind of cars the players drive when you walk through the car park. All of the things that you're soaking in on a match day, I've probably become really good at as I'm getting older. Because, like I said to you before, at some point someone's going to say, we want someone else to do this job. So it's really important to soak in the experiences that you get, just the ordinary ones on the way into the ground. And then walking back to your car when Liverpool have won a game. And you say to my little fella all the time, don't get used to this. At some point Liverpool won't be the best team in the world anymore. God, we've got to hang on to it while it lasts, haven't we?
Gosh, yeah. Can't let them down now, just
Yeah.
do you remember your first day on the sort of Liverpool job?
Oh, good question. First day on the Liverpool job was probably difficult because you get so used to knowing what you're doing in radio, and then TV you don't anymore. Probably one of my most memorable days would have been in radio, because Radio City had such a brilliant and competent reputation of doing everything properly, and I always like to be super prepared for things. I can remember one of the first things I was sent to at Radio City was to interview the Everton manager, who was Walter Smith at the time. So we're going back to maybe the 2000-2001 season, and the editor just went, "Can you go and interview Walter Smith at Belfield, the old training ground?" And because I didn't feel prepared for it, I was really nervous and really worried. You were asking me before about nerves, weren't you? And I really embrace nerves because I think they're positive energy that you can really get something from. But when you're not prepared, it's a different type of nerves, because you're thinking, I've not prepared properly here, so I'm preparing to fail. There's way the other way around, is fail to prepare, and that big saying. But I went there and he was really under pressure, Walter Smith, really under pressure. And the way it used to work then is I would ask a question, you'd ask a question, somebody from a different radio station would ask a question, all to the same person. It would go around in a circle twice, and nobody had asked the question, which was the burning one, which was, if you lose at the weekend, are you going to get sacked? So here's this wet behind the ears 20-odd-year-old kid, and I was thinking, nobody's asked, and it got to me and I thought, I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't ask him the question, because this interview's going to end any minute now. And I can remember saying to him, a lot of the fans are saying, if you don't win this game at the weekend, it could be your last one. And I can remember him just looking at me as if to say, who's this kid? I've never seen him before in my life. And he just turned around and walked away. That was the way managers used to do it then. If they didn't like the question, they'd just walk off on you. And he walked off and he knocked the biggest camera tripod over you've ever seen onto about 5 or 6 people at the back. And he just turned around and looked at me and said, never mind my last game, it was nearly your last day. He said, as he knocked the tripod on top of me. And I thought, don't ever send me to Everton again. And actually he lost the game and he got sacked that weekend.
So you kind of predicted it.
Yeah, it was the right question to ask. But difficult questions are difficult to ask, aren't they, in those scenarios, and they've never become any more comfortable. Fortunately, we're not often in that position at Liverpool where you're sacking managers, but I still think of Walter all these years later, God rest him.
Would you say that was sort of like a pivotal moment for you in your career that sort of like made you realise like you have to sort of be careful but also see if you can push the boundary a little bit?
Yeah, because I think probably the art of what we do is asking the right question to show people in the right light, but at some point, certainly when I worked in news journalism, you're taught in journalism to question everything. So, you know, in news in particular, when you interview politicians, it's quite right that you put them on the spot and you ask them difficult questions. You know, football's a little bit different, but then people might say, well, I pay a lot of money to watch my football team, so if the manager's not performing, then you need to ask him, is he going to lose his job? So that happened a lot when I was working in radio, both in news, and I was reporting a lot on Tranmere, and you know, as Tranmere fans will know, they've changed the manager a lot of times over the years. So quite often you'd be in that position where you'd be asking managers where they're going to lose the job, which never felt natural because you never wanted to see anybody lose the job. But yeah, they're the difficult part. I always used to, you know, do a little bit of training with people now as well, whereas the difficult questions you should always make really short, because sometimes the temptation is, because you're nervous about how the question's going to come out, you ask the same question twice.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, she doesn't look comfortable with the question I'm asking, when sometimes the right question in that scenario is, if you lose the game at the weekend, are you worried about your job? Just short and sharp, snappy.
Yeah.
And then the silence that probably comes afterwards is for people to decipher however they want it to sound. But yeah, the temptation sometimes is to be too elaborate with your question. And in the end, you tie yourself in knots, and the manager might say, I forgot the question now, it took that long for you to ask me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everybody starts laughing and you've lost it. You've lost the audience completely.
Speaking of interviewing people, who's been your favourite person to interview, whether that's, you know, the most interesting or, you know, as you said before, the one you've learned the most from?
They're all different, aren't they? Particularly football managers, because you learn to hone your skills together. Sometimes, you know, Sir Kenny would always try and get a laugh, or he'd always try and crack a joke. So you always need to be really careful about how you phrase the question. Yeah. Most people would predict the answer from that would be Jurgen Klopp. It was just, you know, a force of nature in the way that he spoke and the way that he got everybody going. You know, as good a football manager as he was, I always felt he got the best out of us as well, as fans, but also, you know, within the media team. I remember first going on a trip with Liverpool when he became Liverpool manager. I think it might have been Marbella or Tenerife, and we spent a little bit of time together, and we never spoke about football. He was quite interested in how I got the job, and you know, how long have you been here, and what teams have you seen? And I can remember him saying at the end of the trip, you know, as long as I'm manager, you'll always be all right here. You're welcome to come wherever we go. And I think probably the overall theme of that was he wanted good characters around him, you know, in his team, in his support team, his players, and actually the media team. He wanted nice people that he could trust, and he was always so kind. And you know, I can remember feeling so devastated when he left. But like, look at the job he did and replaced him. Yeah. They just always seem to find it, whether it's the number 9 that you become so attached to, or a Liverpool manager, and you know, the guy they've got now is incredible, and a force of nature in a completely different way. Yeah.
What was it like for you then, that switch from Klopp to Arsenal?
I think everything's difficult, isn't it? But I think the thing you become used to in football is that it changes quite a lot. So every 2 years the players will change. Yeah. Every 2 years the manager will change. But then you become part of a club like Liverpool, where they've got this history of continuity. So, you know, we've been really lucky, haven't we? There's been a few exceptions, but for a manager to be there that long and have that much success, you kind of become reliant upon it. But change is also exciting. Change is also healthy, and you know, the manager was ready for that change, as in Jurgen was ready for a rest, and we were probably ready for something new as well. And you know, the surprise and the beauty of that was, I don't think we expected that change to happen as successfully as quickly. We were all expecting that maybe that would take some time. But what he was brilliant at was accepting that lots of what he did was brilliant. So let's maybe just tinker with this and that. And you know, we had the year that we had, which feels like a dream, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. Like, as a fan, watching Liverpool go from losing one of the best managers we've ever had to then picking up a new amazing manager and winning the league, that's just incredible. I couldn't believe what it sort of would feel like to be behind the scenes and that, and get involved in that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sometimes I'm the person at the end of it that gets to finish off whatever the great work that is that goes around it. So, you know, there's such a big team involved in making sure we get that tone of voice right on, you know, even player video signings now. There's so much creativity that goes into them. You saw the Alexander Isak one a couple of weeks ago, where they had 3 seats and just a number 9 in the middle. The way they tease that on social media, and then the announcement comes 10 minutes later. You know, all of those things are wonderful to be involved in, and like I say, I get to finish it off, but there's so many unbelievable brains behind it, the people that make the documentaries, you know, the people that formulate those kind of signing days. You know, my boss actually is somebody that I really look up to, but he was a runner when I joined Liverpool. Right. So he was, you know, somebody just starting out in an apprenticeship almost. He worked in films and TV as a runner before, came to Liverpool, now he's the boss. You know, he's a couple of years younger than me, and he's just the most creatively gifted person I think I've ever worked with. You know, he's a mad genius at times, but it works, and he's a huge Liverpool fan. But we're so lucky we've got really talented people that work there that really love the club and are passionate about the club. Probably could have gone and worked anywhere in the world, in any different sport or TV environment. But it's like that old saying, isn't it? Once Liverpool touches you, it's never the same.
Yeah. Is there anyone who you'd like to interview, maybe a player who isn't at Liverpool anymore, or somebody working behind the scenes who you never really had the chance, but you'd like to sort of see what you can ask them?
Good one. I'd love to have interviewed Bill Shankly. Yeah. I think that would have been quite a tested interview as well. I got to know quite a few of his players that played for him, some of the stories they would tell about him, and how straight he was, and you can just hear his voice when his name's mentioned. And I probably watched every interview that's ever been done with him that's available to watch on, you know, YouTube and through videos and stuff. But yeah, I think he probably would have been the one. I love Bruce Springsteen. I'd love to interview him, you know, outside of football. So yeah, but it's a great question. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, I think the obvious one would be Bill Shankly. Yeah.
And you know, with your job, you've travelled the world, and you know, you've met some amazing players. What has been the highlight of your career?
Oh, the highlight of my career, without a doubt, has been the parades. The parades are probably the most emotional experience you'll ever have doing this job, because you leave the hotel, say for example Madrid. I can remember packing my case in the afternoon, going to the ground, thinking, like, I could come back to this hotel in Liverpool, European champions, or you could come back to this hotel, you're packing your case really hurriedly, getting on a flight, going home, you get off the bus, and then you get in your car and you drive home. But actually tomorrow, Liverpool could be European champions. I could be getting on that bus, driving around the city for 4 or 5 hours, and getting the opportunity to ask these questions about how it feels to be on top of the world. And I can remember Steve Hunter, who's a commentator at Liverpool. He's from this area as well, and we came through in Hospital Radio together. So we were at Arrow Park Radio, and he was a Tranmere commentator. I wanted to be a Tranmere commentator like he was on the games, to get me a break, to maybe get to radio one day. And I remember him saying to me in the day, he said, "Are you on the bus tomorrow if we win?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "It'll be the best experience of your life." And I've got to be dead honest, when I woke up in the morning, we'd stayed up really late. We'd been like partying with the players till about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, of course. And
had somebody said to me then, "Do you want to swap and I'll do the interviews on the parade bus?" I'd have said, "Yeah." I'd have said, "I'm so tired, I've not been to bed." I think we had about 40 minutes sleep. Because by the time we got to the party, it was about 2 in the morning anyway, because we'd had all the interviews and whatever to do. So it was actually only been in the party about 4 hours, but I was so tired and so emotionally worn out. And I could still never forgive myself now, all these years later, for I'd have surrendered that opportunity because I was so tired. I love my sleep as well, that's another thing you should know about me. But anyway, we get on the bus, and Joe Gomez said to me, "How long will it take?" And I said, "About 4 hours, I reckon." And they were all tired as well. I said, "No way, it's not going to take 4 hours to go from here to where did we finish? On the waterfront." He said, "It won't take 4 hours to get from here to there." And I said, "Well, the bus is going to go 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's going to go really slow. There'll be crowds everywhere. Probably going to be close to 1 million people in the street." And I can remember him pulling a face, just saying, "Oh God, this is going to be a long day." Fast forward to the end of the bus journey, Joe said to me, "Can we do it again?" He did another 4 hours. But the reason it was the best day of my life, aside from seeing my kids born, was driving around the city and looking into people's eyes on the street. You could see what it meant to them.
Yeah.
And the players and the manager had never had that relationship with the fan base before, because if you've ever seen a Premier League footballer walking through an airport or walking down the street, because they get inundated and because they get mobbed, they can never really stand still. So if you ask for a selfie with a player, they're probably still walking as they're taking a picture with you, because if they stop, there's going to be hordes of people around them. So their experience has always been getting somewhere in a hurry. But because they were on this bus going really slowly, they had no option but to look into people's eyes. And people are shouting, thank you so much, you're amazing, and you're my hero, and throwing shirts up to them. But the thing that really got me about it was I could see the way it was affecting the players. They're just falling in love with the fan base. They can't believe the difference they've made. They've made people's lives better overnight, literally.
Yeah.
In 24 hours, they have made these people's lives better. But the thing that really got me overall was you could see people holding up pictures of dead relatives that clearly couldn't be there. And their only way of bringing that relative that had been so desperate to see Liverpool win the Champions League, European Cup, was to bring pictures of them. And there were so many people lining the route that just had these frames with beloved relatives in them that couldn't be there anymore. And it felt like for 4 hours I had the biggest lump in my throat and just trying to hold in what I wanted to do, which was just burst out crying. Because it's just emotionally so overwhelming. And at every different street corner there's another story you can see. And kids running down the street throwing the shirts up, players signing the shirt, throwing them back down, and it was just indescribable. The joy that I got from that. And then obviously you've got to try and do your job and speak to players, and players are just expressing how much love they've got for the fans, and just the most surreal high. I got to do it 3 times.
That's amazing.
So I got to do it in 2019, I got to do it in 2022, and obviously got to do it a few months ago. But the one in 2022 was interesting because if you remember, Liverpool had gone to the last day in every competition. So they'd lost Man City had won the league on the last day of the season. We just missed out. We were beaten in the Champions League final by Real Madrid, but we won the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. So the players got on the bus. They didn't really want, I don't think, to do the parade because they felt some way that they'd let their fans down by not winning the 2 big ones. And then you see the leadership of Jurgen Klopp, who just said it's really important that you do this for these people. We want to say thanks to you. And again, it was just mesmeric scenes. Liverpool parading these 2 trophies, and you just have the best party. As soon as that bus turns out on Mather Avenue and Calvin Harris was playing music, it's just, imagine the best party you could ever go to in your life, and it lasts 4 hours and you get to see all of your mates on the way. You spot everyone on the way on the top of the bus. And if you're a Premier League footballer, it probably takes a lot to thrill you outside scoring a goal or being in a game, but I mean, they would all pick those parades, I think, as some of the most memorable things they've ever done in their life before.
What was it like for you as a fan, being on the bus surrounded by the players, seeing the effect that it has on the other fans?
Probably massive imposter syndrome, because there's so many other people that were so deserving to be on that bus. And I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder about, people thinking, what's he doing there? My job was to interview the players, so I'm looking at the bus behind, or I'm looking at people that couldn't get on the bus thinking, he should have been on here before me, or she should have been on here before me, the job that she does at the club. So yeah, I'm always really self-conscious around, I want to be dancing like the players are dancing, like you see them on the bus, but I'm thinking, I didn't win the European Cup last night, so I'm just going to stand there trying to look professional and hold the microphone in front of players' faces. But probably the overall thing is imposter syndrome versus you've got to enjoy this, because you might never get the chance to do this again. And also trying to get the best out of the players, because your job is to try and get them to transmit to the fans how much it means to them. I think some of the interviews you see on that bus you'd never see in a normal football environment. So I don't know, I'm still getting goosebumps talking about it, and I got the chance to do it 3 times, and hopefully there'll be a few more.
I assume it's sort of an experience that you'll never forget, and every time it's still the same sort of emotional, and the impact that it has on yourself as well as everyone else is just incredible.
Because that's what it's about, isn't it? Football is emotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think sometimes, the things you do for your football team, sometimes you wouldn't do for your family. If your family rang you up and said, "Can you come to Moscow to to come and spend a couple of hours with me. Moscow. But Liverpool playing there, you go and watch them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So some of the things I think you do for your football team and the money you would spend and the lengths you would go to, you know, the emotion is what it's all about. It takes you to places that you never expected, sometimes lows as well, and you know, most teams would never win anything. I think that's important to realise in football, isn't it? You know, you'll have friends that have never seen their team win a trophy. You couldn't even imagine that, could you?
No. I think I'm quite lucky as a Liverpool fan to see that. Yeah. Because a lot of teams, as you said before, don't get that. Yeah. And especially, you know, speaking about playing football, I play football, I've got an injury at the moment, and it has been one of the hardest things in my life, sort of watching my team play and not being able to join them. You know, I think the resilience that football players must have to, you know, go through an injury that could possibly ruin their career, and have to watch it week in, week out, and sort of, you know, get to grips with that. Because, you know, for me, I play grassroots and it's hard. Never mind that's being your sort of income and your life, and all that effort into it, for it to just almost be taken away like that. You know, scares me as a, you know, as I said before, I play grassroots. But if I wasn't able to play football, I don't know what I'd do with myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is my main sort of outlet for, you know, everything. So.
Everybody feels safe on the pitch, don't they?
Yeah.
It's the place that if you've got any interest in football and you can play a bit, it's, you know, and our players say it's the place they're most at home. And it's mad, isn't it, when you think that they could walk out in front of 62,000 and feel relaxed because it's what they do and it's what they prepare for all week. But like you quite rightly point out there, it's also their identity. So when that identity is stripped away by not being able to play, they feel as though they're not contributing. You know, and they're in the gym when the lads are outside on the grass, and you know, you'll be feeling that as well, watching them from the side, and you can't contribute to it is probably the most difficult thing. You think people like Joe, don't you, Joe Gomez, who's, you know, been denied for so long from playing, and now he's fit, and you see what level he contributes at. But you also see how hard they have to work, and quite often in isolation. And some of the most treasured people at Liverpool are those physios that work with these injured players, because they're psychologists, they're counsellors, but also they're medically trained, probably the best in the world at what they do. You know, you think of the likes of Lee Nobes and Chris Morgan and the Doc as well. You know, they are the best in the world at what they do, but also, aside from getting players fit again, they've got to keep them mentally attuned to, you know, when you're back, it's not going to happen again. So yeah, it's like you're saying there, it's their identity, and when they can't play, they don't feel as though they are themselves.
Yeah. How do you think that's sort of changed, you know, opportunity for media, especially for women in sport? You know, you see female presenters, you know, sort of taking charge on, for example, like Match of the Day.
Yeah.
How do you think that sort of changed from when you started out to now?
Immeasurably, really. But then you see some of the women that are getting opportunities now at the very top jobs, like Kelly Cates and Gabby Logan and people like that. They were presenters I was watching when I was coming through, and I've always thought they were unbelievably good. It excites me, to be honest. And I met a young girl at the game through the foundation the other day, and she said she wanted to be a commentator, and I said to her, listen, you've got the most special opportunity now. You know, make it happen for yourself, because the doors were closed, you know, not that long ago. If you're good enough now, you get an opportunity perhaps a little bit sooner than maybe when I was coming through. You know, Robin Cowan, people like that, like brilliant commentators. And I think people have become used to them being part of frontline men's football as well, and that's been really important. You know, these people have worked harder, you know, than probably I have in my career to get the breaks that they have, and to now see them part of it. You know, some of the female pundits that you see out there that are just, you know, so good and have worked so hard to get that, and they've got a voice. You know, that diversity. Everybody's got a story to tell, and why should they have their stories limited by people's preconceptions about what men's voices on TV or radio? So, you know, much past their elbow, and I actually think Kelly Cates is the best presenter out there. Forget the fact that she's a woman for a minute there. You know, also forget the fact that she's the daughter of the best player Liverpool's ever seen. She's the best because she knows what questions to ask. She understands the game, and she's quite clearly a wonderful personality because you can tell I think by watching a presenter, if they're warm because of the way their guests react to them. So yeah, I mean, certainly where your story is concerned, just go for it because the doors are open for you. But sorry, in answer to your first question, it's changed immeasurably. I think positively, but it's a world that I probably wouldn't have understood when I was coming through at your age.
I'm like trying so hard to find little sort of alleyways I can get into, because it's such a hard thing to sort of break that barrier and sort of get into the part where it can be like, oh, this can be a job now, I can do this and earn a living from it. Like, that is my dream. My dream is to, be abundant.
Yeah.
Like, and sort of, especially being like a woman, there's still a lot of barriers that are there for women, I think. But I think that now is the time, I think, to sort of get into that.
Yeah. I think from spending a bit of time with you, I think you've got the right personality for it. You're persistent, you're confident. They're the most important things to have. Not to take those knockbacks personally, because I had hundreds of letters that went unanswered. It's very easy to ignore an email or a letter. What's really hard to ignore is somebody coming up to you at an awards night and saying, "Give me some work experience," which is what you did when we first met, and that's to be admired. Had you not done that, then I wouldn't have remembered you. I actually went away and started talking to somebody about it. It was like, this girl came up to me, she'd won an award, it was clearly impressive what she'd done, but the fact that you'd had the confidence to come over, clearly you're a great communicator. These things are so important because when you're confronted by that, it's hard to ignore, isn't it? And these are skills that'll serve you well when you're doing the job for real.
Yeah.
And hopefully when you're my boss one day, you'll keep me on an extra year.
Sort of, you've seen the Hive today, and the opportunities that the Hive has given me are incredible. What was growing up like for you? What opportunities did you get? Because, the Hive wasn't around when you were little. It's only been around for, coming up to 9 years. So what was it like for you without a sort of building like that?
Yeah. My nan and granddad lived on this road. They lived on this road, and my dad grew up there. I was born in Rockferry, Inglemere Road. So those places didn't exist then. You're talking, early 80s when, there was probably one or two football teams that you could play for. Whereas now the opportunities to get involved in sport are so lavish. I mean, I was blown away when you showed me around.
Yeah.
You can do anything here, can't you? You get bored with one thing, you can try something else. Facilities and capabilities, but I'm also acutely aware that the kids are putting up with an awful lot more now.
Yeah.
Social deprivation, particularly in this part of the world, is quite shocking, really. So to have somewhere like this that they can reach out to, and I suppose that's the biggest job is you're making people aware that it's here. To think that you can pay 50p and come in and use the facilities that you've got, and no kid goes hungry that walks through the door. Some of the unbelievable schemes that go on in this part of the world, like Donna Scully at the Charles Thompson mission, what she does there with that team of volunteers on a Sunday. They're so lucky to have the people that they've got. I mean, the facility is one thing, but a facility is nothing without the people, and you can see from the volunteers that you've got. Yeah. It's a passion, isn't it? It's a way of life. So yeah, long may it continue.
What room do you think you would have spent the most time in if you were young person?
Tough, because everyone you've shown me, I'd have loved the studio.
Yeah.
It actually looks a little bit like the first studio I used when I was coming through at Hospital Radio. It looks really similar to that. But I can remember walking into the studio, shutting the door, and just thinking, like, this is me. This is my calling. This is what I'm going to do. And even though I knew that nobody was listening, I mean, I think half the headsets in the Hospital Radio ward didn't work anyway.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because I was getting me practice. It was almost like training to be a footballer. I was out on the, kicking a ball against the wall almost in the radio sense. So I'd have loved that. I'd have obviously loved that pitch you've got upstairs. Like you were saying before, you're chasing people off, it can become that full.
Yeah.
The ability to sit with your mates in the cafe would have been great. You've got an indoor court. I'd have probably booked in to get my hair cut.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd been brave enough for the boxing ring, but
no, I'm not brave enough for that yet. Did you play football growing up? You mentioned the football pitch upstairs. Was that a big part of your life?
I love football, and it's probably the only thing that I truly miss through having to talk about it, really. Playing for teams when I was a kid, and coming through in sixth form in St Mary's. I went to school in Wallasey. The school teams there, I'm still friends with all of those lads that played football with when I was 16, 17. Played for a team actually from Birkenhead, Port Sunlight. My dad became manager of the team, and I played in the same team as my dad for a little bit as well when I was young, and he was coming towards the end. We used to go to Yates's for drinks after we played, so I've got so many brilliant memories about being in Birkenhead with all my dad's mates when I was 19, 20, playing for their team. And when I went to Radio City, actually, we started a charity team, so the charity team was always really famous at Radio City, and we used to play every Sunday. But John Bishop played for us. He was at Radio City at the time, and his brother Eddie, who played for Tranmere, they were our central midfield players. We played at Pulp Vix's ground in New Brighton. So many memories of playing footy all around the world.
Yeah.
And we played for 3 years, never got beaten. And we played a team in Runcorn, actually. I think they'd gone unbeaten all year and won their league. And I used to think it was all DJs who played, but were actually all half-decent players. Yeah. We had a few ringers as well. And we beat this team from Runcorn on the slope. Everyone will know that the pitch in Runcorn on the slope on the edge of the dual carriageway. It didn't go down well, but we turned up and beat them. But yeah, the best memories of playing football.
Yeah. Can you still keep your feet?
No. I'll probably pull a hamstring to keep you up these now. My little boy, when I play footy with him, he laughs and says, "Be careful, Dad, be careful of your knees." But yeah, I miss that the most. I say to him all the time, if you play football, you have friends forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what level you play at, it doesn't matter how good you are. Sport is such a big social key to the world, I think. The kids now are so lucky to get to travel, be part of a club like we were talking about before, the amateur clubs, give them opportunities to travel to foreign countries to play. But that's the most important thing, is if you have a go and you're part of a team, it's not only really important for your social scene, it teaches you to be part of a team in whatever job that you do. And everybody's got a role, haven't they, in a team.
Would you swap? Would you trade your career to be playing professionally with them?
No, I wouldn't, because I see as good as the high points are and as good as the stuff that we've talked about, I also see the kids who come through aren't good enough, ultimately. And like I said before about when Liverpool touches you, nothing else compares. You see a lot of those examples where kids will come through at Liverpool, have a great youth career, and then they go on to the professional game and to clubs in the lower divisions, and it never quite compares, but also sometimes it just becomes too tough for them, too competitive, and there are very few examples of players that leave bigger clubs and go on to find their way all the way back. So I see that, and I empathise with the parents that have that yearly struggle with, do they get a new contract? I also see now through the grassroots football in particular that parents are so desperate to see their kids become professional footballers. And there's a reason why not many people become professional footballers, because it's so tough. And I often worry about what happens to that kid when they become a disappointment to you because they've not become a footballer. Because it's so tough. Yeah. It's so tough to make it in the first place, and then they have to make it every year. And actually look at Liverpool's examples now in the first team. Not only do they have to make it every year, they have to make it every week. Yeah. Because you can't be any lower than an 8 out of 10, because you won't be in the team next week. So I've got so much respect for players, not just at Liverpool, but players that make it to a level where they're getting paid to play every week. But I have no hesitation in saying I wouldn't swap it, because I know how tough it is. Yeah. I know how tough it is.
Yeah, and you also spend a lot of time with the players, so you firsthand must know that as well.
Yeah. You see the ex-players now as well. The club, Liverpool, are brilliant in the help that they give players that no longer play for them. So they'll have academy players who left 5-6 years ago that they still help and they still speak to all the time, the coaches. But you see the ex-players who we talked about identity before with injured players. Once their career's finished, they can't really find themselves again. Yeah. Once football leaves them behind, what do they do now? Their identity is no longer the same as it was. So I think there's a lot of footballers that maybe came out of the game in the 80s and 90s that are still looking for the high that gave them in their 50s and 60s. Those that don't make it to a top level. Um, so yeah, it's a really tough, unforgiving industry, I think, as well.
Yeah. Just going back on a little loop back to the start of sort of your career, what skills do you think young people today need to sort of get into radio and television?
Personality, charisma. I still think they're the most important things. I think in my job every day, because you're meeting new players a lot, they need to learn to trust you.
Yeah.
So sometimes the way they trust you is through time, but also through personality as well. Some of the most popular people I see at the club are not footballers or coaches, they're people that work behind the scenes. Like one of my mates who works in the press office and player appearances, he's so popular with the players because he's a character and they love charisma. Sometimes professional footballers can be a little bit preconditioned to mistrust people before they trust them, because if you're a Premier League footballer, everybody wants something off you.
Yeah.
You know, they want a signed shirt and they want tickets, and you know, it takes a long time for them to trust you. But I think, you know, persistence, like I said before, is really important. But yeah, personality is so important in I think every different walk of life now, because you've got so many distractions, and you know, phones are probably going to be the true cause of the world being disrupted in some way, because people are so reliant upon them. But you know, I feel so sad sometimes when I see, you might see a kid sat there with a grandparent and they're looking at the phone, and I'm thinking, you've got no idea that time's running out that you get to spend with that person. Whereas we never had them when we were kids. You know, you probably get bored of hearing stuff like this, don't you, Charlotte? About, you know, we had nothing when we were kids, but you know, we had everything in the same way, because you had to learn how to become a good communicator, or you'd be ignored. So the same core skills that I think were really important when I come through are really going to be important for the rest of time. You know, be someone that people remember. Be someone that's interested in conversation. You know, learn something about people that you know, you maybe not that familiar with. Ask questions. And you know, listen to stories, because at some point this generation that are around you now won't be around anymore. I even think about like people when I was a kid, like my granddad used to wear a shirt and tie all the time. You never see anybody in a shirt and tie anymore. You know, that's a generation that's becoming extinct. So, you know, listen to your stories of your grandparents and your parents as much as you roll your eyes. You know, their experiences will be important for you one day as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, personality and charisma, I think, is the two most important.
Just my final question for today. If you had to go and speak to your 16-year-old self, what is one piece of advice that you would give to them?
It's a brilliant question. It'll be all right. Is probably what I would say. All of the things that you invest in, like hard work. I think hard work and persistence is so important. Again, like I said at the start, people say to me all the time, "You're so lucky," and I am.
Yeah.
You know, I would never ever get away from that. But I also say that you don't stay lucky for long without hard work. You know, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Believe in yourself. That's so important. Resilience. You know, don't take the knockbacks personally. There's only one difference between criticism and feedback, and that's how you receive it.
Yeah.
They're both the same thing at the end of the day. People are only giving you that feedback because they want you to become better at something. Criticism sometimes can be that it's just their opinion.
Yeah. So
you can choose to ignore criticism if you don't think it's valid. And you know, in the football sense, and again, it's kind of things I say to my son all the time. You know, you might be criticised by a coach, but if you think you've poured everything into that game, then ignore them.
Yeah.
Because only you know if you've poured everything into it, and it's the same in life. If you've given it everything, nobody can criticise you for that, because you'll find something else. Your calling will be something else. But 16 is such a difficult age, because you're trying to find your way, and you're influenced by so many different things, and social media can be so dangerous. It can be a great tool as well, but you know, staying true to those things, you know, have faith in yourself, and if it doesn't happen, keep trying, because there's no time limit on it. You know, people are still trying to find out what they want to do in their 40s, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So yeah, just have faith in yourself, and hopefully there's always people that will jog alongside you and help you with what you're trying to get to. can only ever be you, and yeah, it'll be all right in the end.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today. It means the world to me personally, but yeah, thank you so much. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go back to the episode before and listen to them. Thank you for listening.